Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Finding Financial Fitness Show. I'm your host, Nino Gonzales, again with Chen. Hey, how are you?
Good. Had a exhausting event yesterday with my daughter, and my voice sounds a little bit deeper than normal, I think. Kind of was running around crazy, but it was a good experience, and seeing how she's grown and the people that she's chosen to surround herself with, I was very pleased and just kind of like impressed. And so I was like, wow, it's like you see the kids and you're like, that's a mini version of what's happening in the adult world.
Right,
Right. So even though I'm like so super tired, I was like, oh man, I gotta bring the inspiration that I got yesterday is still fresh in my mind
right.
to today. I gotta bring that energy in.
Yeah, no, you kind of briefly shared with me the story of it, and I think the takeaways that I had was just obviously she's your daughter. I mean, just building community, that outreach of wanting to just not only build something, but as a result, building a community and helping people in that sphere. Obviously, I've seen that with the Dibs community that you've kind of built up with you and Mike, which is really cool. And then the second thing is what we're going to talk about today is kind of the value of building a team, of having key components, because you mentioned Jackie being your daughter being an only child. I grew up an only child as well, and oftentimes people who are only children, or even individuals who don't necessarily have a strong relationship with their siblings, tend to have this mindset of I can do things on my own and I don't need help. And I
Mhm.
think that I can really relate to that, speaking into the first few years of just going from bachelor's to master's to I was also when I got out of playing soccer, I went to bodybuilding, which is a very individualistic sport. Right, bodybuilding is I'm in the gym, I'm training my body, I'm not playing with anybody else. Like that's me, and so therefore all the glory but also all the pitfalls are on me. And I learned that through that. And so through my successes, I realized, well, why would I have a personal trainer? Why would I have a coach when I'm doing this all by myself and I've been successful? And it wasn't until I went back eventually to playing soccer that I realized I was not a team player anymore, because it was all me, and that really became a conflict going back to a team sport. And it was recreational, but I took it extremely serious, and it really bothered me when other people wouldn't. So that kind of I ran into that issue in soccer. And then in my own career, when I had looked back, I as a dietitian, I had mentors in there. Although at the time, I didn't really know that they were mentors, but they were reaching out. They were willing to help me, willing to give me advice, even when I wouldn't ask for it. Right. And so I kind of learned the value of that. And that was the nail was put in the coffin when I started learning the finance world, as I've shared on this story multiple times on this podcast about me meeting with you. And then from there, the community that you kind of introduced me to and that I was grateful enough to be a part of, I realized that I went far and we went far because of the community we had. So that's what we want to talk about today, is because I think that that's something that I know you and I struggle with. Is we've gotten to a certain point where maybe not that we've outgrown our community, but now we want that next challenge. We want to build that next team. And I think we talk about evolution, we talk about transformation, you talk about being intentional, and you mentioned your word for 2024 was transformation. And it's about taking it to that next level. And how do we find people that we want to associate with and build our own team? But taking it a step back, what do you think when you first built your team, and as you evolve and as you build new teams, what are some key pieces and or key people that you think our listeners should know when they're out there looking to accomplish things in life? What are some key type of people you think that they need to have by their side to be more successful?
Yeah, and I gave this, quite a bit of thought as I transitioned from kind of like receiving a lot to now giving, right? Because that's also a way to grow. And at first I was just like, I just need to I used to be very skill specific when I'm looking for a coach, right? Like just like in a weight loss journey or health journey, like I want to lose weight, therefore I'm going to go to the gym. Therefore, I'm looking for that one, physical trainer, right?
Mhm.
Who's gonna, but then you don't know what you don't know. So you don't know that there's a lot other pieces to it, right? We're not just looking for one thing, even though we think that we're just looking for one thing. So when I was ending this financial journey, I started looking for just like, oh yeah, I went to a real estate training, right? And they offer coaching, and they only just teach that one specific skill. For example, like that it was a particular skill about sub two. wraparound mortgages, right? Where you approach people who are maybe underwater on their mortgage and you offer to pay their mortgage, take over their mortgage, and then you then turn around and you slap another mortgage on top of it and you cash flow on both ends in that sense. So I was like, oh yeah, you know what? I'm gonna pay money, I'm gonna learn that skill. And I benefited from it, but that was a very limited thing. There's nothing else I can use that skill for what? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
once I'm done with that deal or done with that style of acquiring real estate, there was nothing left, right? So that was a very limited time engagement. And so now I'm looking for more like a long-term mentoring type relationship where, and I struggle with this. Do I always only look for people who are more successful than I am, right? Who's like building an empire, or do I look for people who are on the same level as I am, who are also looking, or I think at this point, I'm feeling like I need a combination of
Hmm.
that, right? I need someone who's on my same level, also searching, who are hungry for information, right? Who might not know all there is, but their curiosity is still there, right? So I feel like I have a partner on this journey with me. I need someone who maybe not haven't gone as far as I have, but is more of a cheerleader for me,
Hmm.
right? Who's going to be like, no, we can do this. I'm right behind you. You know what I mean? But then I also need a mentor who's ahead of me so that, you know, he or she is carrying that flashlight that allows me to
Yeah.
see a little bit further than what I personally can see, you know, and it be it this team can be multiple people. So it's not just like depth of experience, but it's also width of experience at this point, right? Financially, when I'm not just looking for one strategy, I'm looking for advisors, my team
Yeah.
on tax strategy, right? Legacy building, you know, looking at different type of asset classes and
Different income streams.
yeah, there's so many pieces to it, and some people may only bring one skill in, which is fine, but some people may bring multiple. But I would say ideally maybe like 3 to 5 people,
Yeah.
or maybe a little bit more than that, depending on what I'm looking to do, to be on a core level where I can kind of on a consistent basis be able to reach out to and talk to and network with. And someone who's also a connector in that piece is
Right.
huge because maybe they themselves don't know what they
But they know somebody.
but they know someone who does. So
Yeah.
you need that piece in that as well. So it's almost like I'm assembling a Avenger team.
Well,
Right?
it's like a Swiss Army knife, right?
Mm,
You have, I think, the likelihood of finding somebody who's a semi-expert in various fields is difficult, right? I think find, and that's the thing when you're building your team, I think this goes to different stages. I think you can always benefit from having this Swiss Army knife of people. Typically, the way I used to see it was if I'm focusing on one thing, everything else is going to take a back seat to what I'm doing. And so what I mean by that is if my goal for the next 3 to 6 months is I solely am going after cash flow appreciating cash flow assets. I'm not worried about appreciation. I strictly care about cash flow from the investment side. Well, then I'm not going to focus on appreciating assets. I'm not going to focus on tax strategies because then I could lose sight of what I'm trying to go after. Right. So I think having that tunnel vision is good, but there's a time and a place for it. Right now, I think we're discussing more of the big picture. Okay, we're not necessarily focusing on one specific niche, but we're trying to balance everything out. And we're not trying to grow in this one sector. We're trying to go and grow as individuals our whole life, our whole sector. And so with that, we want to be able to identify a community, have a community, and then from there, then we reevaluate our goals and say, you know, based on all the information I've gathered from various people, then I can decide, hey, I really want to learn about wraparound mortgages for the next 3 to 6 months because that's going to be my next income stream. And then you go from there, and then maybe you focus on the tax strategy, and then maybe you focus on something else. I think that is very important, but it does, and it is very important also to be able to identify early on the type of people that you're going after. However, there is something to be said about organic and natural relationships that come up, as opposed to going into every meeting with a new person or an existing friend and thinking, what value are you going to provide to me? All right.
mm,
Because oftentimes that doesn't, you start seeing things with a clouded lens because you're only looking for that one, you don't have any value. But in reality, that person could be, I think everybody has something to offer. Everyone has their own experiences and can have something to offer, be it might not be the right moment for you, the right time, but they can have something to offer. And so being able to be open-minded to what somebody can bring, and instead of saying, how can I find another person to fit this role? It's saying, how can this person fit into my team? What can I give them this role? If you like the person or if you like these
Yeah.
people, right? I think that we talked about in various episodes prior about when we advance to the next level, do we bring the people up with us if they don't really want to, or do we just find new friends and find new people? And it's in that limbo, I think, that crevice between the two, where we're both of us currently reside, and are trying to figure that out. So I think it's important to identify, who do you want to have on your team. I personally believe, like for me, definitely am looking and want somebody who is where I want to be in the next 1 to 3 years. And then also having somebody who I want to be in the next 5 to 10 years, because it gives me a chance to see both sides of what they're struggling with. I want a couple of people who are maybe a couple of steps behind me, like we've talked about as well, that I can share what I've learned, because you mentioned that you learn a lot about yourself and you can gain a lot of value from helping others, right? As opposed to receiving, flipping your hands over and start giving. I think that improves you as a person. And then with the other components, like for health, for example, being able to have the right team. So if you're trying to work on your physical fitness, having a personal trainer, I like I'm just detour here because I like your example of what you said. Like, what if I'm just focusing on one thing, not knowing that other people can bring value? If your goal is to lose, 15, 20 pounds, and you walk into the gym and you have a trainer, that trainer is going to train you on your training for that 1 hour that you're there. But the remaining 23 hours are just as, if not more important than the 1 hour training session you're spending. So if you're spending all this money and time working out and you're not losing any weight, but you're not taking to address your nutrition, you're not taking time to address your sleep, you're not taking time to address your stress, all those variables will determine how much and if you're going to lose weight. And just having one pillar addressed is not going to do everything. So, not saying in an ideal world, we have coaches, we have experts in all of these fields, but maybe you have a book, or maybe you have a podcast, maybe you have a YouTube channel that you go to for that information. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's ideally we would have a physical person to fill all of our voids, but knowing the difficulty associated with that, do you think that a book or a podcast or a video on YouTube can fill that void as well, to potentially help you grow in certain areas?
Absolutely. That we are in an age where YouTube University sometimes is actually more valuable
Yeah.
than actual information. I mean, a lot of the stuff that we hire coaches to do, if you have the time and the focus and the desire, you can probably learn it just from collecting all the information from YouTube. But I am always reminded of this. Someone said this and was just like, man, that's true. Is that information is everywhere. It's out there, but wisdom is hard to find, right?
Yep.
And we can chat GPT all day, information, right? You're gonna get all sorts of information out there, whether true or not, legit or not, we don't know. Only through actual application of the information and experience can you gain the wisdom. And there's also a second saying, right, that I truly believe in, right? A smart man learns from his own mistake, and a wise man learns from somebody else's mistake, right? And we kind of talked about that in previous episodes, where I would rather have somebody else's 100 hours of experience,
Yep.
right, that I can leverage. So yeah, I mean, like, I can spend hours just do it myself and learn whatever skill sets I'm looking for on YouTube or Instagram and TikToks and whatever out there. But I am more of the camp to look for someone who's done it, been there, even if they're not hugely successful, but at least they can tell me the pitfall. Like, what
Yeah.
happened that, you failed at this. That for me is valuable,
Oh yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
Like a one hit wonder, great, but I can't emulate that. I can't copy that, but I sure can avoid the
Mhm.
mistakes that you made,
Yeah.
right? So in that sense, experience for me is important. That's
I
probably
agree.
one of my big piece. It's more about experience. What have you tried? What have you done? How many times have you failed versus your one big win? Good for you, but times are different. I'm different, and circumstances are different. How am I going to be? I'm not going to be able to go back in time and kind of match the time and space like you did when you become successful, but I want to learn the lessons that you learned along the way from those unsuccessful attempts that got you there. So it kind of changes a lot of how I'm evaluating coaches and mentorship programs, out there that I'm thinking about doing, because I'm like, of course, and that's human tendency, is to just flash the success, right? I'm so successful because I did XYZ. You should join me, right? But if it was so easy, then everybody's going to do it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
So
where I'm kind of at.
I agree. I think I fully agree with having somebody that you can learn from their losses. I think having your inner circle be, as I mentioned, somebody who you want to emulate, not necessarily emulate, but somebody that you want to, that you think is the life that you're aspiring to have that person there. Have somebody who, as I mentioned, you can help, you can bring along with you, who's just as motivated, basically you 18 to 24 months ago, that you feel like, okay, I really want to help this person. And then having somebody who's an expert in their certain field. And that could be a certain field that you find valuable. If you're building a financial team and you have an astronomer, how much are they going to be able to help you? Right now, granted, I think it would be cool to have an astronomer friend to ask some more, questions about space, but as it pertains to your financial outlook, maybe that's not the best person to have. But I think having, like, on your team, it doesn't have to be a tax expert, but someone who focuses primarily on the tax code, that can give you some insight where you can say, hey, I was thinking about this. Does this make sense from a tax perspective? All right, you have that. Someone from a legal perspective, again, doesn't necessarily need to be a lawyer, could be a paralegal, could be someone in law school, could be somebody who has just some, and I'm not talking about a Netflix kind of person who watches Netflix and says, I watch Law and Order, I know the law. Like someone who actually has experience with the law. And this could be somebody who actually, maybe they got in trouble for not having their documentation correct for one of their businesses, and their business got shut down. Well, then you could learn from that person. Okay, what happened? What did they go after? What was an issue with your contracts? So on and so forth. I think it's important to have someone who has some experience in terms of law, because at some point in your investing, the tax man and the law, is, you want to make sure you're avoiding those two, or at least following directions appropriately. And that's important. And then that's kind of, I would call that one side of the spectrum. The other side of the spectrum, more on the fitness side, the health side, it doesn't have to be a personal trainer, but someone who you determine to have expertise in the health and wellness sphere, that you can turn to when you are at the store debating what bread to buy. You're like, do I need whole grain? I heard not to eat white bread, that you can just kind of ring up and talk to. I think someone in the mental health sphere, it could be a psychologist, it could be a counselor, it could be a marriage and family therapist, someone with some experience in mental health, or maybe someone who's, like you mentioned, doing the work. Maybe you're not going to be the one that goes on YouTube and reads all the books on mental health, but maybe you have somebody who's really interested in learning about that, and you could pick their brain. They tell you every week they read a different book on mental health, and you can pick their brain about that and start implementing some of those things into your life. And then I like having something that I realized over the last few years. We actually had Jessica Tavison on one of our recent episodes. Something I learned from her actually was just having somebody who's spiritually calm and that can root you. Because if you're just constantly surrounded by people who are on this growth journey, and we always say you're a product of your environment, then naturally you're always going to be more, go, 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 go. But if you have someone who's just spiritually calm and is using these resources to enhance their life, but then to eventually slow down, or who is already mindful and present in the moment, that kind of brings all of them together. And it's like, hey, guys, relax. Like we don't need to go this fast. Let's enjoy the moment. And I wouldn't say not like necessarily like a hippie, but just somebody who's like, hey, enjoying the most out of life.
It's like the grounding wire, right? Like I'm not an electrician, so I may be saying this wrong, but you know how you have that grounding wire,
Yeah.
right? That's that person. And I mean, I think we typically kind of discount that type of personality a lot, right? Because we were like, that's just the opposite of who I am, and I want my team to be all doing well, like hyper up and like ready to go. But you do need that person, be it the airport dad or, or that, spiritual guru who's always throwing out the wise saying that you're like, you're right. I think that's the beauty of assembling your own team, because you know your own shortcomings, right? So by my age now, I know what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. And as much as people talk about personal development, and I could try to overcome those things, at some point I realized a leopard cannot change his spots, right? I have to work with what I got. We actually talked with Jeff, we interviewed him about the Enneagram and
And you're
Enneagram,
We did a whole
right?
hour-long episode, and we
I
still
still
don't know
can't
how to
pronounce
say
it.
the word.
The personality types,
Yeah.
right? We're not saying that we're boxed in that personality type, but we're saying that knowing my personality type, knowing my, strengths and weaknesses, now it allows me to go out there and assemble a team that complements what I'm trying to do. I may not need another personality like myself because I'm already too much in that category. So now I need to like be mindful of when I do incorporate people on my team that I have a more balanced approach, right?
Right.
Because depending on whatever goal that I'm trying to achieve, that is probably what's going to help me get to the next level. And I don't know what's beyond the next level that I'm looking for, right? And it might not be necessarily financial reward. It might be more of a like, hey, this feeds into my purpose that I have been developing, right? The transformation that I'm looking for may not be just financial. It could be something that I'm looking to give back. And how can I be better? How can I reach more people? Right. I run these potlucks and whatnot. That's great. And I enjoy them. And I don't think I'll stop. But at some point, I'm like, my house can only hold so many people. I can't keep on buying bigger homes to accommodate. You know what I mean? If my goal is to grow my community, grow my group, then how do I get to the next step? And what's holding me back? Why am I not growing? Right? Is it because I'm concerned about, how I look on camera? So I don't, you know what I mean? Like a lot of pieces that I'm just struggling and juggling internally
Yeah.
as well.
I remember I used to hate youth sports as a kid. I think it's gotten worse, but I used to hate youth sports because everyone would say, don't forget, like the parents, just remember to have fun. Right. And I remember, I was playing soccer a couple years ago, and I was playing recreational, but it was very competitive. Like there was no professional teams, no contracts, no money or anything. We actually had to pay to play in this league. And I remember, we were all hyped up and we were like, come on, like going into the second half of the game, we were tied 0-0. We were doing all these plans, and one of the players, his wife was there. Don't forget to have fun, guys. And what? I was like, what are you talking about? But then now I look back and I think that's so true. Like, I don't remember the outcome of that game. I don't know if we won. I don't know if we lost, but I do know how I felt that game because I was frustrated. We weren't playing well. We weren't doing well. And at that moment, I wasn't enjoying it because we weren't winning, right? But isn't that the irony in what if we would have won that game? We might have even won that game. Did it bring me any more happiness? No. So might as well have enjoyed it and have been having fun the whole time, win or lose, not taking it as seriously. I think I'm so guilty for this. And I think a lot of people can relate about just not enjoying life enough, thinking that delayed gratification that I've talked about numerous times, where if you delay gratification all the time, there is never gratification. You're just delaying it. You're never going to be happy. So that's where I think having somebody in that kind of group is so beneficial, because it makes things so much more enjoyable, and it reminds us why we're doing what we're doing. For me, although I don't necessarily have a person like that per se, I have my mindfulness practices. I have my books that I listen to that every day I'm consistently reminded of that. Now, it doesn't mean that every day I'm doing a good job about it, but it means that there's always that trigger. There's always that reminder. Hey, don't forget to enjoy this. Hey, be present, be in the moment. And I think that's important.
Yeah, and I think because of the personality types that we are in, that we're part of, we so focus and we sometimes solely focus on the success of something based on the return, right? The numbers. And we forget that like and I get it, people will be like, oh, haha, of course I'm here to make money. I'm in it for reaching financial greatness. But I think you forget to look at the intangible things. Like when we talk to Kish, and what really impressed me about him, those of you who, haven't saw the interview with Kish, definitely listen to him, is that all the measurements of his success and whatnot that he's looking to accomplish, they're not something that money can buy, right? Which for me was like a reminder, right? I forget that. I lose sight of that myself, and it's all like get down to the spreadsheet and did this investment return exactly to the penny of what I was promised, and if I lost this 2 cents at the end, oh no, this whole thing didn't work. And you know what I mean? We lose perspective of the whole thing. Like, yes, sometimes it doesn't feel good when the outcome is not what we're looking for, but if we're not mindful of the joy of why we're doing this along the way, it's not a fun experience. Then why are we doing it? And I need to remind that to myself as well, right? I've always just said, like, if it's not fun, I'm not doing it anymore. When I started teaching, it was exciting, it was a challenge, and I was having fun, right? But once I stopped having fun and it became something that, like, I can't even get out of bed to motivate, I'm like, let me just use my day off today so I don't have to go in anymore. Then that's when I was like, what am I doing this for? Right. So yeah, that has always been my measurement of, like, hey, do I still want to do this? Because if I'm not having fun anymore, I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And my fun, the word fun can be just how rewarding I feel in doing that endeavor. I use the word fun generally. If I cannot laugh and enjoy myself anymore and it becomes a chore,
Yep.
then I have to rethink my thinking. That's how I am.
I actually think that's part of the reason why I stopped playing soccer was because there wasn't joy in it anymore. It became too, I know my personality. I became too hyper focused on it, way too taking it seriously, and it wasn't fun. And it, like I said, it was just friendly games, pickups, nothing crazy. It wasn't fun anymore, and that resonated with me a lot. I think also something you mentioned about getting to that next level and maybe having difficulties either connecting with people because you don't fully know what that next level looks like to you, or others might not understand what that is. There might just be a whole different lens to see it through. I know I went through that this year. Is I kept thinking, all right, I made X amount, now I'm going to make X amount. And as I was trying to go from this place to the place next up, I was realizing, why is this so much more difficult? It was, to me, it was find the same, it was repeat the same parameters just at the next level, invest the same amount of money but more, go into the same income assets but more. But then I realized I was asking myself the wrong question. I was asking myself, how can I make more money? The question I needed to be asking myself, that I am now asking myself, is how can I be happier? And so when I started asking that question, we've talked about this, I think it was episode 2 or 3, where when you get to a certain level of income where your expenses and everything is covered, well, then that exponential growth and happiness, doing 2x what you did last year, is not going to make you 2x happier, right? Like, please understand that to listeners. Making 2x what you made the year before, after you're making over 100K a year, is not going to make you 2x happier. And if you're trying to become 2x happier, you need to focus on other things that are going to make you 2x happier. And this goes back to the whole point of this conversation about having a team, because just like you can have a financial team, a fitness team, you can also have a spiritual team. You can also have a social team that maybe you just go and have a drink with, or play pickleball with, or play soccer with, or whatever your method of fun and outlet is. Having those people, maybe you'll start spending more time with it and you realize, hey, I actually want to do more of that. Not to say you can't continue to focus on your fitness and your finance. I mean, again, this isn't finding financial fun. It's like, we want to find financial fitness, of course. But if it's not bringing you fun anymore, if it's bringing you more stress than it's bringing you good, then maybe ask yourself a different question. And that's where, again, having a team or a friend group or a community that you can turn to and literally have this conversation with, then maybe somebody will tell you, hey, I don't think that money's going to solve your problem right now. I think this is more of a health problem or health question, or maybe this is more of a spiritual question, or maybe this is more of a personal development question. Being able to answer that, you can only look at yourself in the mirror for so long and not get the answer. Sometimes it takes a different perspective to reflect back on you the answers you're looking for.
Yeah, and I think also you need to, another key person I think that needs to be on your team is someone who's going to tell you like it is.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who's going to be
Yeah.
honest with you and be like, hey, listen, you might not want to hear this, but I need to just tell you this is how you're coming off as lately. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's, at the time you might be like, whatever, you're not being my friend.
Yeah.
But I think that person, and it could be that person can be any of those people on your team,
Sure.
right? But having that one person who's not afraid to tell you, like, you're going down the wrong path. I think you need to readjust, or like just say, like, you're not being very nice right now. Nobody likes you.
That's true.
Right? And I think it is hard to find that authentic group, but I think on this journey that we're on, we are blessed that we're starting to find those people. Those people are starting to show up in our lives. And I think part of it is because we have been very intentional in putting out the vibe that this is what we're looking for. And we're being vocal about it. We're speaking it into the future, into the right. We're not just kind of hiding behind closed doors and like wishing for this to happen.
Yeah.
Wishing without action, you're not
Yeah.
going to get any result, right? So, we kind of talk about this, but after the podcast is over, I tend to go back and like, okay, well, what can I do? What's my that next step? What action can I do to get closer to what I'm looking for? And that's ultimately part of the goal of this podcast. And that's also part of my own personal goal as well, right? I'm exploring different things and sharing what I find. And hopefully we can all get there. Maybe not at the same time, but we'll all get there eventually.
I think it's very well said. And you mentioned something I want to actually finish on was, we talked about already when it comes to building our team, what things to look for, what type of people we want to have, experts, not experts, friends, supporters, people who can tell you how it is. I think that's the first part, is identifying the type of people you want. Maybe not first. I think this could be done concurrently, but how do you then go about finding those people? You're not gonna put out an ad on social media and say looking for new friends,
We
right?
kind of just did. We just did it on podcast.
Yeah, this is, by the way, we're gonna do like the old
Reach out.
VHS dating, videos where it's like, hi, my name is Nino and I'm looking for this type of friend.
Oh my God.
No.
I just have a brilliant business idea. And I'm
Here
going
we
to share
go.
this, and somebody's going to pick this up and they're going to become billionaire, and that's fine. Instead of Tinder, come on, guys, we should have a coaching matching app, a coach or mentor matching app. People should upload their profile, what they're good at, what they're able to help people do, and kind of like, I'm serious.
Oh,
We
this is
can
brilliant.
swipe
No, this is
and
brilliant.
match and do a meetup and like see if, just meet for coffee and be like, I want to know about your philosophy, your expertise, and just here you go, somebody, come on, do an
Oh
app.
my, to be honest, I've thought about that. Like not like me to develop that app. I mean, like I've thought about how awesome that would be to have something like that, even for friends, like even for like general finding friends. Right now, and I was just kind of alluding to this right now, like how do you find those people? How do you find that community, right? The easiest thing to do is you got to put yourself out there, right? You got to make friends that way or find friends of friends. But I know a lot of people like the concept of meeting online or using apps. I think for a coach, I never thought about it from a coaching perspective. I thought about it more from a friend perspective, but might as well use technology. I think that would be cool. But
Just think about it. You have what's that company called? BetterHelp. You can be matched with a therapist nowadays,
yeah,
right?
right.
So it can't be that hard. This is how I roll. Like I would talk, I would do, and then ideas would just flash into my head, and I call these epiphany moments. And I typically have to voice that epiphany moment to people. Not that I'm going to take any action on it, but I hope by putting this out there, someone will take this idea, run away with it, and like create this brilliant business. And then I'll see it online and be like, oh my God, that was my idea.
Also, to add to that, I think if you're going to do this app, there should be every coach, when you're going on their profile, there should be a required 30-second intro where the
Oh yeah.
coach introduces themselves and their coaching style and what they believe are their top investment categories, their top asset classes, depending on the coach, of course, but like a 30-second monologue of who they are. And that way, us as the potential clients can then swipe on, oh, this is my personality style. This is a go-getter. That's how I am. Or, this person's a little bit slower. I like this. And that way you can match for it. Yeah, this conversation took a turn that I did not expect. But hey, someone build a company, we'll fund it by all means.
Right. And then you incorporate that test that Jeff King talked about, right? Where it
Enneagram, yeah.
shows their
Oh my
which type
goodness.
of personality they are
I
already
love it.
pre-coded in there. Then that way you're like, okay, I'm already a 3, so I don't need to find another 3. I want somebody to compliment me.
All right. So Pei, aside from the creating an app to find your coach discussion, brilliant, by the way, what are some other techniques that people can use to find supportive people, community oriented people that they want to have in their inner circle as they propel themselves on their journey?
Yeah, that's always, I mean, we are lucky that we found a relatively like small group of people who have common goals, and from there we're able to grow from. And I get it that it's not very common for most people out there. Even some of the coaching programs that's been sold out there by these gurus. I mean, I see it more nowadays. They will have a coaching program, and they will also have a mastermind group, a
Mhm.
private group, where once you become a client, you then get invited into that group. And I think that's a good start, because you could get in there, and there's always going to be one or two people who are super helpful, who are willing to help the newbies. And if you can find your way into one of those communities and kind of observe first, right? You don't need to come in and be like, you don't have to do that. Just come in, quietly observe, and see who kind of stands out for you. Like who's offering, advice and help, and have some experience that you feel like you might be able to learn from or benefit from, however you want to put it. Reach out and be like, hey, I'm looking for this. Do you know someone? Do you? And I typically don't say, can you help me? Because that typically is like, oh, well, I don't know. But if you say like, do you know someone, right? Who do you know that can help me with this? I think, especially if you are lucky to hit a connector type personality, they will go out of their way to be like, oh yeah, I know X, Y, and Z, so and so, have mentioned this. You might want to reach out. So just don't be shy, right? I
Yeah.
mean, with this nowadays, it's hard to meet someone at a cafe and just strike up a conversation. I don't even ever talk to anybody sitting on an airplane next to me. Like, I
You
got my
talk to me.
earpods in, don't bother me, right? And I get there's those people who can talk to anybody, but that's like 1% of the population who feels comfortable doing that. Most of the people still feel more like, hey, let me observe first. And that's how I typically do. I belong to like a ton of like different communities, and I don't always participate. But I observe and I pick up on who's like legit, right? There's a lot of talkers out there,
For
um,
sure.
but
Well,
I see
I
how that
think
works.
another important thing, and this is not just for, I know we're talking about building a team from a potentially a financial perspective, but this can also translate to just having a team of friends and a team of people that support you. And I think that those, in an ideal world, all of them are intertwined. Your friend circle also is your financial friend circle, is also your health friend circle, and everyone's on their journey trying to become better. Maybe some are focusing more on other areas in their life, no problem. I think I think hobbies are huge. This is something that I'm actively working on, that I want to bring into my life for the next 6 months to a year, is working on hobbies that I like, doing more hobbies that I like that are not individualistic. I tend to gravitate towards, I'm like an introverted extrovert, where when I like doing things, I like doing things kind of by myself, unless it's maybe with the spouse or maybe with you or just like really close friends. But putting myself, I used to do this a lot when I was younger. I would just go to, like when I was at work, put myself in different events or different places that I could just meet people. And the intention was never to meet people. The intention was, I just want to try this out. But naturally, you meet people. Like, I'll give you an example of something that is really popular nowadays, is like a run club, where like here in Houston, there's a bunch of run clubs where you literally meet maybe every Saturday morning at a park, and everybody goes and does a 5K. But afterwards, you start seeing the same people over and over again. And we talked about, typically in society, you're going to have the general question of like, oh, hey, what do you do? Well, if you have a pretty catchy, like, hey, I am financially free, or hey, I'm a passive income investor, but I'm also a dentist. Well, that's like if someone catches that and is like, oh, what do you mean passive income? And vice versa. You ask them like, hey, what do you do? And they tell you like, oh, I'm a lawyer. It's like, oh, hey, I have and that's how you
Mhm.
can naturally, but when you go to these places, typically you have something in common because you're going there. Go to a pickleball like club where you can go play, go to a CrossFit gym, go take a Pilates class. Like when you're at these places, you start seeing more people over and over again. And I think that that's a good way that at least you have some similarities and something in common, versus if you're going to like an art class and you hate painting, well, what are you doing? Right. So
Right.
it's
Yeah.
things like that. So I think that putting yourself out there a little bit more, I think is important. I know something that I want to work on, because you don't know who you're going to come across. You don't know what you don't know. You don't know who you're going to be sitting next to. And it's not to say you need to be so vocal when you're on a plane or when you're at a place, because I would say a good majority of people will be like you and have their AirPods in and not really want to nor care to strike up a conversation. But I think that your exposure becomes so much greater that it becomes a lot easier, because you're meeting 10, 15, 20 people a week. If you're meeting one or two out of those 10 or 15 that have a similar kind of wavelength as you, then pretty soon you're growing and you bring them into your friend circle, you bring them to the potlucks, and then they like it, and then pretty soon they're telling other friends about it, and that's how your potluck grew. Like truly, that is how it's grown. I think that taking that as like a key is good.
Yeah, there are like multiple ways, like if you're like an introvert and you're shy, there's the online way, right?
Yeah.
Like I was talking about. And then if you're much more comfortable speaking with people face to face, then I think this still exists. There's a site called
Yeah.
meetup.com, something like
Hmm.
that,
Yep.
where there are like special interest groups that you can join, and they will have like I think I even saw something like Eat Up Club. Like
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
literally meet up with people who like to go out and eat
Yeah.
and
Yep.
just go try different restaurants and whatnot. But whatever it may be, something that you're interested in doing, I would not, recommend Nino join like a needlepoint club, because that's not fun for you.
Oh yeah.
I don't know, maybe. But start with something that interests you, and then go from there. I wouldn't have like super high expectations of like,
Sure.
hey, I'm gonna be meeting, the love of my life, as far as like, financial love of my life. But at least you start expanding that your network, right? And then going to people that, I think even if you're at work, right, having that relationship with people that you work with, kind of expand that a little bit, well, maybe go deeper a little bit, right? Asking them the question, hey, what are you looking to do like in the next 3 to 5 years, right? If that answer intrigues you or is kind of aligned with what you're also looking for, like, hey, you want to grab coffee and, meet up and whatever, right? So we have to learn to be uncomfortable
Mhm.
socially, because I think the gain of that is valuable. We don't know what we don't know. So let's go out there and find out.
Yeah. And you never know. Financial love of my life. I'm pretty sure that is a synonym for sugar daddy. I'm pretty sure that's what Pay is telling you to do. I'm just kidding. No, but
I'm talking about Tinder, and I'm what's happening.
oh my goodness. No, I think it's important to, as we discussed in this episode, right? We talked about the value of having a team, having a community, having a circle. We identified that. Then we identified maybe some pieces of the community that we want, some specialty areas that we can lean on and learn from people, and maybe learn from their experiences, learn from their mistakes, instead of us having to go out and learn by trial and error from ourselves. And that's important. We talked about different ways to potentially find those people, in terms of how do we meet them, how do we go about, and okay, we've identified them, but how do we incorporate that and hopefully find people that we can share all of this with. And then I think the highlight of this episode was we literally just beta an app right now of coaches. So if you are a financial coach, a fitness coach, or a client wanting a fitness coach or a health coach, please develop this app. I would 100% take part in it. I love the idea. I love the concept. I was not expecting us to go and discuss app development, but this would be cool, because I do think that I still think the in-person component is unmatched. But if you could find like a local coach in your area that you could screen, and then eventually you go meet with them one-on-one, I still think in person will be the best. I mean, by all means. So I know we kind of joked around today, had some fun talking about different things, but I do think this is such an important topic, and makes not only life more enjoyable, but it makes the process, and it makes what we're after more enjoyable, and makes it more pleasurable for everybody. So Pei, thank you for the insights. Anything that you wanted to wrap up with today?
No, that's it. I think, from young to old, everybody can assemble a team to help them in
Yep.
life. So yeah, that's it. I hope the listeners enjoyed it.
Yep. All right, everybody. Thank you again for tuning in. Please tune in for the next episode of Finding Financial Fitness. Take care.
Take care.